I don't know what's going on with the graffitis here in Rome. They are everywhere. Everywhere.
przenikały i kolorowe. Zobaczcie, czy nie taki kolor deszczu. No, z XIV wieku
spa.
Det var den her fra den 4. århundrede, ikke? Ja, her kan man se mursten søjler. Kollapset. Så de blev opereret i 1100-tallet. Ja, vi kan stå på noget der.
testifies the transition from Latin to Italian canon centuries. This is 1080, a little bit after 1089. But before the Arabs. So that's important if we want to study the history, the evolution of language in this country. Then you have this word, feeding, and then very cool. You heard about Spanish.
No, maybe not.
Son of a bitch.
Yes, I said derogatory means it's a nasty.
Yeah, son of a bitch.
Right.
That's what it is. And so this is what Saint Clement is telling those guys. They're trying to arrest them. The funny thing is that this is a church.
Yeah.
That's a saint.
Yes.
You would never write that kind of thing today in a church and say that that was what the saint said.
Yeah.
In those days, that was his thing. My idea is just an idea. I don't have any proof.
because that was a big problem in the Great Fire Control. You know, they had to tear down many buildings to create colors of lighting force. Yeah, buses only, and that's why when the squares, they were not just meant as a business, but also as a cover to prevent colors.
Wir gehen erstmal den Rundgang. Weil damit müssen wir als die Erste. Das ist ja der Anfang.
From the first century AD. And that's why I stopped here.
Ah, Mist. Man kommt nicht herein. Okay. Ja, also, kommt ihr mal näher.
เราผ่านมาเราไม่ได้
So this is what we believe it was. And the floor, indeed, because you mentioned the floor, whenever you see this type of floor, you know that nobody of importance was supposed to come here. Because it's not marble or anything, it's just like the anybody floor that we do accommodate in a bar. So you have so many hotels or in Australia or in a warehouse in London. It's not technical enough to make an impact on everyone coming down here. So otherwise they would have used marble to make it just right. I kind of want it. No, it is beautiful. It is. It's way. But it's not without the floor. You would have chosen one to live in fraction of anyone. Any questions at all? No. So we're going to go back to the first church, and I'm still going to show you one thing there.
Dai, oddio, l'ho ancora fuori. È peggio.
Very little light. In the walls.
Here, what you're going to see actually is still another example, of a wall. When they did it, when they built these walls, they didn't have to bring up the church again. Because they thought it's going to be there forever. Yeah. Get rid of it, just put it there. But the thing is, you're going to notice these arches, they're longer. Why are they longer? Because the thing is, they're not going to compensate humanity. And that's why these arches will actually, disturb the harmony in the building. So they have to actually, to do something, in order to compensate, for the lack of dirt and to allow us, to visit it, because otherwise we wouldn't have been able to see any of the things that we saw today.
Just like even for just marble, it looks very layered.
No.
The back looks like it's a lot of the holes So they did some order and some levels.
To level and to make sure that things are not going to fall out.
You make sure the rest of it's about dirt.
This house is called.
Exactly.